So again, as I had hoped, everybody did pretty well on these three. Everybody got these two. I didn't check all the details in this one, but I saw everybody doing the right stuff, okay? Doesn't mean you didn't make little mistakes, but the procedures are good, which makes me optimistic for the next few assignments. Well, at least the next assignment, you shouldn't find too difficult. Now, there's another one that'll be due Tuesday. We'll talk a little bit about that one. Unfortunately, we had to talk way too much about stuff that we did last time. So we're not going to change the pace of the course. Just because you're going to need it. Okay. So we have this equation, x over 2 plus 3 equals x over 9. And what you do is you multiply by 18. Because 18 is your common denominator. So you get 18x over 2 plus 54 equals 18x over 9, which is then 9x plus 54 equals 2x. Now, a couple of steps that you know perfectly well are going to give you 7x equals 54. So x equals 54 over 7. You notice that if you multiply by a common denominator, it gets really easy. Okay? Once you multiply by a common denominator, you get this, which is just like the first equation in form. It's totally easy. Okay? The easiest of the three. No, the easiest of the first. The easiest of all. Okay? Well, when you got 2 over x plus 4 equals 7 over 3x. What's your common denominator? It's 3x. Okay? Got an x in it. Got to have a 3 also. Otherwise, it's not going to contain this denominator. So you do 3x times 2 over x plus 4. Well, let's do it right. Plus 4. Okay. That gives you 3x times 2 over x plus 3x times 4 equals 3x times 7 divided by 3x. You have to come back over this way. Okay? 3x times 2 over x. What's that give you? That gives you 6. I'm going to have to, play around with the rules for fractions, but 3 times 2 is 6, and then you have like x divided by x. Then you have 12x. Over here, 3x divided by what? 3x divided by 3x is just 1, and you're going to get 7. So you're going to subtract 6, you're going to get 1, you're going to divide by 12. Okay? So again, this is a little more complicated because you got that x as part of your denominator. But it shouldn't trouble you overly much. Now I need to do a quick introduction. Something here. Let's take an equation much like the one we just did. Okay? Common denominator is 15x because x is part of 15x. 3 goes into 15, 5 goes into 15, right? So we do 15x times 5 over x plus 15x times x over 3 equals 15x times 7/5. Well, you multiply this out, you get, I'm going to actually multiply it out, you get 75x over x. Now, what's 15x times x? It's like 15 over 1 times each thing, right? 15x multiplied by x is 15x squared, isn't it? And you divide by 3. And then 15 times 7 is 105x over 5. Well, x, you can factor out an x divided by x, so that just gives you 1, so that's 75. 15 divided by 3 is 5, so you have 5x squared. And 105 divided by 5 is 21. Okay? Now, if you try to solve this the way you just solved the other equations, you're not going to be able to do it. You can't put x on one side and then add something to the other side and get x, sometime some multiple of x equals something, because you've got an x squared here. So we can write this equation. Now clearly we could subtract 21 from both sides. I'm going to write it this way. Okay? This is a quadratic equation. I'm going to have to run over just a minute or two. I'm just going to give you what you do when you have a quadratic equation. The easiest thing is to use the quadratic formula. Anybody ever remember seeing the quadratic formula? Yeah, some maybe not. If you just had Algebra 1, elementary algebra, you might not have seen it. If you've already had some Algebra 2 or even completed it, then you have. Okay? Okay, so the quadratic equation is of the form ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. Its solution, with an S, because it usually has two solutions, but sometimes it doesn't have any. Okay? Is R x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. Now, you're eventually going to have to remember this, so you don't have to keep looking it up, and if you have a test, you probably won't have access to looking it up, okay? So you will eventually have to remember, but right now, just write it down, keep it in front of you, and use it a lot, and then you're going to start remembering it. Okay, well, if we look at this equation, we see a is a number in front of x squared. So for our equation, a is 5, the number in front of b is negative 21, and c is 75. So our solutions, x equals negative b, which is negative of negative 21. We just plug in negative 21 for b, plus or minus the square root of b squared, that's negative 21 squared, minus 4 times a, which is 5, number in front of x squared, times c, which is 75. All that divided by 2a, a being 5, it's 2 times 5. Okay? Now, in this case, when you simplify this, 4 times 5 times 75 is 1,500. If you square 21, you only get 441. This is going to be positive, but that's going to be negative. It's going to give you a negative number under the radical. You can't take the square root of a negative. It's not a real number. Now you can with complex numbers, and we'll see that later, but right now we're not going to worry about it. So if you have a negative under here, you don't have a solution. So this equation doesn't have a real number solution. Okay? Now this says a lot about the graph of this function. We're not going to talk about that just now, although we probably will soon. Because if you're especially in the other, Mr. Gallagher's in class 161, you're going to see that real soon, if you haven't already. Okay, so there's a quadratic formula. It's a very simple thing if you just put the equation into this form and identify A, B, and C, and your open math assignment will help you with that. Okay? If you understand that, you should be pretty much okay.